I live in Japan and have lived here for a long time now. My town is pretty rural. There's less than 3,000 people, and I know a lot of them by this point. I especially know all the children, because I've taught most of them since they were little. Last night I got home from work late and was getting ready for bed. I generally get to sleep early, but with my busy day, it was almost midnight by this point. As I was turning off the lights, I started hearing knocking at my door. It wasn't especially loud, but someone was pounding to get in, but instantly my stomach knotted up with anxiety. It was just a consistent knock, knock, knock at even intervals. I chalked my anxious response up to tiredness, because while rare, it wasn't unheard of for my drunk coworkers to drop by wanting to hang out after they got out of late night meetings or other events. Generally, I'd have some warning, them yelling messages before they showed up, or sloppy use of my doorbell, but maybe this time they were just being weird. Either way, I decided I'd tell them I was too tired to hang out tonight, and I grabbed a sweater and put it on over my PJs before I answered the door. As I stepped down to open the door, I felt another wave of fear in my stomach, but then pushed open the door anyway. Standing on my porch were two kids, both elementary age, judging by their height, and they were holding hands. They were dressed normally, but inadequately because it's still winter here and there's lots of snow even now. They were in sneakers, jeans, and black hoodies. The hoods were pulled up, and though I couldn't see their faces perfectly, I was pretty sure that I have never seen them before. This immediately set off warning bells. Kids I didn't know, this late at night? I asked them in Japanese if they were all right. Yes, we're fine. Please let us in. We need to call our parents, the taller one responded. His voice was calm and quiet, and his response was very polite. The shorter one just continued gazing at me, not moving. I hesitated. It was definitely cold outside, and I was regretting not wearing any socks just standing in the doorway. But most teachers are well aware that you never have unsupervised kids in your house, unless there's an emergency. But it was almost midnight. Maybe this time should be an exception. What's wrong? Where are your parents? I asked them, not yet willing to let them in. The feeling of dread was growing, but I wasn't going to just abandon some kids outside in the snow. They're close by. Just let us in. We need to call them. Again, that patient, polite tone, but now the tall child's voice had started to get slightly louder. I looked past them, out into the night, but couldn't see anyone else around. Where had they come from? I decided I wasn't going to let them in. Something felt terribly, horribly off. And even if I was a jerk for making elementary school students stand outside, I couldn't ignore that feeling. How about this? I'll go get my jacket and I'll walk you to the fire station, okay? I proposed, knowing that it was just around the corner and the entire path there was well lit. I started to take my hand off the door to let it swing closed while I went to grab my things. But before I could, the taller child spoke again. No, you will let us in, and we will use your phone. The older child responded again. His voice was firmer, louder, still overly polite, and when I had taken my eyes from them while I glanced around, looking for a jacket in my entrance room, it seemed like they had gotten closer. I could now see them both smiling, though the rest of their faces were still shadowed by their hoods. I felt like I was choking or drowning, and my brain was freezing up. Both kids' gazes were burning into me, and I could feel their tension, their excitement. My head suddenly swam, and my arm against my panic had started pushing the door wide open again. What do you want? I stated, this time in English because the words just wouldn't come to me in Japanese. We just want to come in. This response snapped me out of it, because instead of the formal Japanese the child had been using, the taller boy's answer was in perfect, clear English. As he said that, they both took a step forward closer, and my porch light finally illuminated all of their faces. They looked like elementary school students as I had initially guessed, and I indeed did not know them. What pushed me over the cliff into full-on panic was their eyes. They were a solid, deep black, and as they saw me draw back in fear, their grins grew even wider. Together in motion, they extended their hands like they were reaching out to me. It felt like I was wading through water, but I pushed the door shut and locked it. I ran around the apartment, making sure all my windows were locked, even though there had been no reason for them to be unlocked at this time of the year. The knocking started up again, the same knock, not louder or faster than before I had answered the door. I started frantically calling my boyfriend repeatedly until he woke up, and then begged him to come over, and I was in tears at this point. He was at my house 10 minutes later, but by then the knocking had stopped and the kids were nowhere to be seen. I told him what happened as best as I could, and we looked outside. There was my footprints in the snow from where I had come and gone during the day, and also his from when he arrived. What sent me into another bout of panic crying were the 2 sets of small prints that led from the street up to my door, but none were leaving. My boyfriend just shook his head, tight-lipped, when I asked him if he knew what this was, and all he would say was, "I'm glad you didn't let them in." I'm not going to stay at my house tonight, but eventually I will have to again. The lack of departing footsteps terrifies me. What should I do?